I know from the title of the video and what's gonna be the topic, and it's called NXT 2.0, but aren't there like three phases of NXT throughout the 11-year history? Like, you see what I mean when I go through the topic from here. So, I'm Slowpoke88, and this is my thoughts on the newly rebranded NXT, now be called NXT 2.0 or 3.0, like I always said just now. Like, you see why the me face. And yeah, I did watch the 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 episodes. I think like two of them of the newly rebranded NXT episodes. Like, I watched the first one, the second one. I don't think I watched the third one. I don't think I did. But because there was like internet issues, I couldn't like watch it. But like, yeah. But so what I'm going to be talking about NXT, pretty much the history of NXT throughout 11 years, from when it was a reality based competition show, and then 2012 began to like have a before it became a developmental brand, before, and when it got really turned into like independent wrestling for like a while, where all the times that was being presented as more industry got progressively. And then when what WWE got NXT wrong, and what has led to this point that's now been called NXT 2.0. So NXT is a weird, fascinating NXT. I really have like, if I'm thinking about it, like, I always have like a love. It's mostly love, but kind of hate relationship with NXT throughout the entire history. Like, I thought like the first version of NXT, from like the season one, when Daniel Bryan and debuted in WWE as the Mrs. Pro, and it got all the fans really. I don't know if it got mad, but they were like, "Oh, Daniel Bryan was a much better wrestler than me. How can he much be a pro since the Miz hasn't? I don't know if he has much wrestling experience than Bryan. I know Bryan is years ahead of him in terms of wrestling experience. But yeah, but I really like the dynamic of Daniel Bryan and Miz at that first. And the show was, I'll say it was decent to good. At least in the first version, like the season one MC. After that, it really got really shitty. Especially when it went to season 3, where it was like all of the divas and all of the, that was so brutal to watch. And the promos in like season 2, like I remember like Michael McGillicuddy, like that promo was so awkward. Like, he pauses lines, and I don't know if it was him or the writer, but I think they really gave him some really shitty lines to work with. So yeah, and then I think I had like 6 seasons of like, or not 6, I think like 5 seasons from like 2010 to 2012, and then came 2012, and that's when Triple H started to run NXT in 2000. I think was in May 2012. The rebrand actually started airing like June 2012. So they just say that, but it was really May 2012. But let's just say June 2012 was when Triple H started to make NXT pretty much developmental. Point of preparing newer wrestlers coming into the company and get them ready to the main roster. That's all it was NXT supposed to be. Pretty much. It's getting the wrestlers learn the WWE style of wrestling, getting them characters, having them connect with an audience, and get them ready, all of those ready for up to like Raw or SmackDown. That always, and it was really at the first like first 2 years, I want to say that it really you can see some where it was really like the developmental, where it was really at the developmental period thing. Like you saw new characters like Bray Wyatt, Seth Rollins, Biggie was used to be called Biggie Langston, Bo Dallas, Paige. One time they had like Emma and Sami Zayn later on. It really was a launching pad for new wrestlers on to the point to main roster. Like Seth Rollins only made it to NXT for like a few months before joining in on before he showed up on like Survivor Series along with the Shield and their debut. So there was that, and they had also Neville was on there, and it was brilliant. And then when I really started to and where I was started to really enjoy NXT was in 2014 as the show got progressed on that year. I really started to be a fan of NXT 2014 and the takeovers when they first started doing it that year particularly. Like I was really starting to enjoy the vibe of the product, the fans in full sail, the matches, the stories, the characters. I really started to enjoy it. Like even characters like Tyler Breeze. Oh my God, what they did to that poor kid. Oh God, man, what they did to him. And I started to enjoy Sasha Banks, Bailey. Who was on there? The Ascension, even the Lucha Dragons, I believe. I really started to really enjoy NXT as the talent they started as like the independence was starting to rise up. WWE snitched for them, like as you saw in 2014. They had Finn Balor on there, and Kenta was and on that he was called Hiedo Atami. That guy was around, and yeah, I really started to enjoy NXT, their character, and their takeovers were really great. They were, I will not say like overly great, but they were starting to borderline great. And I think that is when, and in 2015, that is when NXT really start to explode. And like they were really raiding really hard on the independent circuit where all the talent from Ring of Honor, New Japan, which they were starting to pick up as well as they already started to grab those talents, and NXT really started to blow itself, to have this like boom period, if you want to say, as you have talent now. You have like, as now they had takeovers, which used to be at only Full Sail, now at sold out pack arenas, and the views were amazing, and the takeovers were off the charts that year. And you had talents like Kevin Owens, like I said, Finn Balor, Bailey, Sasha, and Banks. Their rivalry and that match in NXT Broker was pro wrestling at its finest. One of the, maybe the greatest, probably the greatest women's match in WWE history. And NXT really started to become, for lack of a better term, reliable. And that's like a key term, like, because for wrestling promotions, it takes like years to have that reliable following. But when you get there, and what often happens is that the fans will have that trust, and when they find that trust, they can have that. They have that trust in like patiently waiting and having engaged in great storylines that they get they're sick into, like look at like NXT 2015 to like NXT 2019, and let's just say that, like for NXT 2015 2019 you have like I said, that Sasha Banks feud, the arrival, and then you start really picking like new talent, like you had Shinsuke Nakamura, Samoa Joe. They brought back talents like Drew McIntyre and Bobby Roode. They also used to have at one time James Storm, I believe. He was on there. Then you had Johnny Gargano, Tommaso Ciampa, Ember Moon, Ruby Riott as well. And then you had Adam Cole, Baby, Bobby Fish, Kyle O'Reilly, Roderick Strong. And then they even had Chris Hero, which he was at like the first 2 years at NXT. Then they bring him back later on. And you had the Undisputed Era, and then you had Velveteen Dream. Oh my God, what the hell happened to that kid? Everyone used to fucking throw a parade for this guy, saying that John fucking Cena himself said was like, he's like the one who has like one of his dream opponents. He said like once at like a Comic Con or Americon or some shit like that. But yeah, he said that about Velveteen Dream. So you had Velveteen Dream, and then you had Aleister Black, Ricochet, Shayna Baszler, Rhea Ripley, Keith Lee, Matt Riddle, and then you had the storylines of like Tommaso Ciampa, Johnny Gargano 2018, the promotion's best year ever. And don't convince me otherwise. That was their best year, bar none. And you had that going. those NXT takeovers on that were on fire. And sometimes they will make the main roster look inferior. Like, usually, like, NXT takeover will happen on the day before the main roster show on like the weekends. Like, takeover will take place on like a Friday or mostly Saturdays, and then the main roster will now, and then the main roster will do their shows on like a Sunday. And most times out of 10, those takeover mop the floor for the main roster shows because they were fun and engaging. They were not overly too long. Like, oh my god, in 2018, 2019 specifically, those main roster shows on pay-per-view were so ridiculously long. Like, and like I still remember like NXT Takeover New York. It was pretty long, but like that show was just, man. That main event Johnny Gargano was was pro wrestling. Like I said with the Bailey Sasha for Takeover Brooklyn, that was pure wrestling. I find like that match was just unbelievable. So Takeover in New York was like, well, maybe it was like 2 or 3 hours minimum. And then like WrestleMania 35 was like, it was 7 hours at max. Like, holy crap. Those no main roster lengths were really tiresome. I know they have cut it down as middle side, but like, yeah. And those takeover will really mop the floor because of the matches, the storylines, the characters that you can get invested in. That was really was NXT at their peak, and it seemed like they were really growing at that time for 2015 to 2019. They were really growing as a brand and selling out arenas and stuff, and they were gaining that trust in fans of following the product along and stuff. And it seemed like they were really on the roll. And then AEW came around. And oh boy, this is where things quickly, super slowly went. Oh boy. Things they and you know things they only help when like when they will send, because it was still the method, they were still pointing wrestlers to get them ready for the main roster. Like 9 times out of 10, those call ups from NXT to Raw or SmackDown don't work out. Like I said with Tyre Breeze, like oh my god, like I know they had an entertaining team as Breeze Daniel. They managed to be a overact with the crowd, but like that first year when Tyre was on the main roster was like Jesus Christ. That was like, oh. And then you look at names like, uh, it's there were few main roster callers that were having pretty fine careers. Bailey, even though her start in the main roster was pretty rocky, to say the least, and even Sasha Banks doing a stint, but she turned out to be pretty fine. And then you had Seth Rollins, turned out fine, Kevin Owens, Finn Balor to an extent, Sami Zayn to an extent, but never used fully properly used by life. You had like the assassin. Oh my god, what they do to him. Both Dallas. Oh god. Um, Ricochet. Oh my god. Look at what they done to that poor kid. And even Aleister Black, like, they were her they were, his promos start to get really repetitive. Where like, pick me a fight or some shit like that. And even like some more like stars like Samoa Joe, Shinsuke Nakamura, like, gee, like Samoa Joe was really on fire on the main roster, and they never give him like the proper push. Like, he will have certain stand pushes, like when he was like main eventing for like he was like main event for like Brothers in like 2017 and then ASS 2018, but never winning those feuds, never winning those world titles. Like, gee, and even Nakamura, like, he feeling with start and like lost and failed to catch a WWE title 4 times. Even before that, he lost to Jinder fucking Mahal twice in 2017. Like, God, man. Like, even look at Kid Lee, like, oh my God. Like, his presentation was pretty much tainted when he came. Like, they changed his music, his ring gear looked really fucking weird. And yeah, like, they really did a good job protecting him. Like, he beat Randy Orton like his first pay per view main roster, but like that never led to anything. And then Karrion Kross, don't get me started on him. What they did to that fucker. To what they did to that. To what they did. That fucking booker was just. When they fucking revealed him, was just. What do they did to that poor kid, to the poor big man Karrion Kross, man. But yeah, mostly why NXT successfully didn't became like truly like over, or why it failed was because mostly they failed to get mostly on who the acts who were usually over on NXT. They did not get over on the main roster most times out of 10. But when NXT really started to go downhill was when they became 2 hours. It was put on USA Network on a Wednesday, the same fucking day as AEW Dynamite, on the exact fucking same time slot. And you really start to see the problems on full. Like, they were trying to be so competitive when the main purpose was to be AEW. And yeah, they got pretty much their asses kicked most times by AEW, because AEW was like the new big thing in wrestling, and unfortunately NXT got the crash of it. They were thrown aside. They were being thrown into this messy of a situation, and you really start to see their price really start to decline in reliability with a fan, with their audience. Like, the storyline were not as interesting as they used to be. The takeovers were really started to go. The takeover was still like really, really good, but then even that, like the pandemic, the pandemic really fucking hurt NXT. Like, that's when the takeovers to me started to go down in quality up by a bit. So, and you really have and then you still start seeing characters going, and their storylines were really, like I said, not as interesting as it used to be. And like, the overall quality of the show, like, really dropped by a mile. Like, the story I remember really like wasn't like Charlotte Flair was really play like, oh, that's another main roster at that. That's another main roster NXT at that failed to get over on the main roster. Like, they put fucking Charlotte over Rhea Ripley WrestleMania last year. Why? Because they wanted to give Charlotte, they wanted Charlotte NXT so they can beat AEW, and that still didn't fucking work because Charlotte didn't do anything worthy, newsworthy with that belt. She lost the title when she wasn't even pinned at all. So, yeah, and and like I said with Velveteen Dream, like, he was sorry, and no fault of their own because they were like, or maybe I'll put the blame a little bit because it was like, because Velveteen Dream really started to have these allegations about him, and when the pandemic started, actually, when these allegations started to happen and they started to leak out, and WWE didn't do jack shit. Like, they on they didn't do jack shit for like a year until like they fired him, like, I think this year they fired Velveteen Dream. But like, there was like one, they didn't do anything with him, and yeah, his career went in the shitter. And what else you have, like, you really have like goofy storylines like the Robert Stone brand. There was that whole gimmick was like, really, and like, just the whole vibe of the product changed when they started to go head to head with AEW, which really wasn't a Wednesday night war. Like, everyone wants to make you fucking really, or even if it was, who fucking cares? Like, that was only put on a slot. NXT was only put in that slot just to be by fucking AEW, and mostly due to Vince, I believe. So, yeah. And speaking of Vince, I will get to him more in a second. But yeah. So NXT were getting their asses kicked so bad that they had to fucking move to Tuesdays just to give a better chance, and that still didn't work out. Didn't work to the degree. Like, the show still was a bit interesting, but not as interesting. But yeah, and then they were really starting, and then you have like the problem, like, they really started to lose some names like Karrion Kross, Keith Lee, even now Adam Cole. They lost him, and they've cut a lot of people. Like Bronson Reed, which was a head scratcher because that dude was literally on the ice. Like, he was on the cups of getting into the main roster. His booking would have been put into that where he was succeeded on that, but like, he was on the brink of going into there, and they did nothing. They just fired the dude for no apparent reason. And maybe budget cuts, but is it really budget cut? Because that same fucking reason they gave to Bray Wyatt, which I still wasn't, not 100% convinced it was to budget cuts. But like yeah, they start to release a lot of people, and then the blame was put on Triple H because he failed to get NXT beat to BAEW in the ratings. So that's when they accepted the film when they moved to Tuesdays. And it all led to now. NXT 2.0, which just launched like 2 weeks ago, I believe. And here's the thing, like, the rebranding and stuff, it kind of needed to happen because NXT itself were kind of a shell of itself that kind of needed to be rebuilt a bit. But the logo was to me. The color scheme was just weird, and then you really start to see some main roster brokings, makes the main roster unreliable. You start to see characters from like WWF 1995-ish. Like, there was a guy that is Rick Steiner, that is now called Red Steiner, that is now called Braun Breaker with like 2 fucking K's. Like, the fuck? Couldn't you just call like Bronson Steiner, because he's basically Rick Steiner's son and uncle of Scott Steiner. And even his fucking voice, Bronson Lewis, sounds a whole hell of a lot like his uncle Scott. And you really start to see, like I said when the main roster, like, they fucking had LA Knight be in a fail forward NXT title main event, which didn't even close the show. It was overshadowed by the Dexter Lumis Indie Hardware wedding. And look, the wedding was, I actually liked it in a weird way, but like, yeah, like, they that main event over the NXT Championship match, and you had LA Knight, one of the competitors in the match, getting pinned by Braun Breaker when he was competing for the championship. Like, what the fuck? Seriously. And also the problem is that you debuted these new characters without giving the audience a chance to breathe. Like, they just slammed those new characters into like one like this show. Like, if you've been a long time NXT fan and you haven't watched it for a while, and then you click on what NXT is doing right now, you will know like 7 to 8 people en masse, because some of the new characters, most of the time don't have no idea. Like Von Ragnar, like, nobody knows what he is, and they fucking put him in the Fatal 4 NXT Championship match. Like, what the fuck? And he replaced Kyle O'Reilly after Kyle O'Reilly got attacked. Like, yeah, like, and it's rumored to be, or supposedly is running by Bruce Prichard and Vince McMahon, which is like, oh boy, oh god, oh man, this is where you truly see NXT go. Bleh. So yeah, overall, and like overall, like here's the thing. This new NXT is promising somewhat, But after the years of what we come to see from NXT, this is going to take a kind of long time to have the crowd get used to these new characters of in NXT 2.0. It has potential, but like it's just too main roster ish, which isn't going to make the die-off NXT fans all that thrilled to have. Like now, the episodes haven't been completely terrible, but like they're borderline average at best, to say the least. It will be really interesting to see what this new NXT is 3, 6 to even a year down the walls, down the line to see 3, 6 a year from now, 3 to 6 months to even a year from now. It will be really interesting to see what this new NXT 2.0 will look like or feel like. So there is my winded thoughts about this new NXT. If you watch this video, like, subscribe, tell me about this new NXT in the comment section below. And as always, I'm Jason Maenius, and I have proved this match.